Hello and welcome back to another episode of She's the Boss Female Entrepreneur Stories, where I'm joined by phenomenal women at all different stages of their entrepreneurial journey who share the ups, the downs, the challenges, the successes of being a woman in business. If you haven't already done so, please make sure that you click subscribe if you're watching on YouTube to make sure that you're the first to know when we release a new video. Today, I'm joined by Charlotte Barratt. I'm not going to try and say all of the phenomenal things that she does, so I'm going to let her introduce herself. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Daniela. Thank you for having me. Such a privilege to be here. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Charlotte Barratt. I'm a business startup strategist and also the co-founder of a business growth agency currently called One Less Stress, but we're rebranding to be called Grace and Charlotte. I'm also the founder of my own brand, Success Even for a Girl Like Me.
Fabulous. And that sounds like you live in a very busy life. You're also a mother. So I want to just jump right in. How do you fit all this in?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I've actually got a 3-month-old baby also as well, and a tween, so 10-year-old that's going to be 11. So it is exhausting, and I'm a single mum as well, so it is hard trying to juggle it all in. But what I found for me, how I make it work, is simply organisation. Literally, my home and my lifestyle is like a military operation. Everything needs to be scheduled in, and I need to make sure all the things are on the notice board that go with being a mum, for those of you that know, and all the business stuff is scheduled. If it's not in a calendar, it simply doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. And how good are you at doing that? Because I try to do that. I've actually just put another whiteboard on my kitchen wall this evening. I've got whiteboards everywhere, but sometimes I kind of get a little bit overwhelmed with trying to juggle and manage and as a single mother, that's like, how do you stay grounded and stay organized and make sure that things don't get missed out?
So I'm like you with the whiteboards. I have one right in front of me. Then I have the one in the kitchen. That's for like the parties, the bits and pieces that go the after school club. So make sure I've got those. My calendar, as soon as an appointment comes in, I use a lot of systems and software as well that help me with the business side. So things are automated. That helps me a ton. I do have a VA as well, which helps me. And having a business partner who, while I'm suffering with mummy brain at the moment, I'm using this excuse for a while. She does pop me and remind me as well. So it's literally just staying on top of it. And I have pretty much a routine. So on Sunday, I'll work ahead for the week. I plan out what's happening each day. And then I also have my alarms that go throughout the day, because I do need reminding, just like all of us, life gets in the way. And then I just make sure I've got prompts and things to help me stay on track as well. But I'm not perfect, as is no one. But it's just trying to stay ahead of the game for me, and having my morning routine as well.
What is your morning routine? I don't have one, and I know that they're so important, but I really don't have one.
Oh, that is great. A few years ago, before that, I used to say I literally was not a morning person. But a few years ago, after reading, I guess many of your viewers would have read The Milk Morning. That's when things really changed for me, and I adopted that approach. Although I don't now, with a 3-month-old, have the full hour because I'm on her timetable. But I have to get up a bit earlier than everyone in the house. I usually do a little bit of reading. I do a bit of thinking ahead of what my main intentions are for the day. The exercise has literally gone downhill, but that used to be part of my morning routine. So it's literally the intentions and gratitude for me as well. It's important that I think ahead of what I'm grateful for. So it sets me up for the day, and then I'll go in and check the emails and stuff as well, what's happening, or go and make the bottles as I need to.
No, it's interesting. Different people do different things, and I know most people do the morning. I tend to do all of those things that you said in the evenings. I think I'm more of a night owl, so I'll do my gratitude and my to-do lists and check my emails before I go to bed. Although I'm doing a digital detox for October, so I'm not allowed to check any devices after 8 unless I'm on an interview.
I love that. I've tried to have a no phones policy in my house after 9. It didn't work, so maybe I'll take inspiration from you and do that the month after.
It's working. Join me on social media. I'm doing it for the whole of October, but only Monday to Friday. Weekends I'm allowed it. So you said before you're using baby brain as an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's real. And for anyone that's watching or listening that's had a baby, and especially if you're in business, it kind of mushes your brain for a little bit, and relying on calendars and diaries and I suppose a VA, I think is a really good strategy, because if you try to continue as you were before having a child, you can find that stuff can start to slip a little bit. So I realized I'd like dived straight into the now, but let's rewind it a little bit. How did your entrepreneurial journey start? When did you first decide, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be in business?
So I always say, for me, I feel like entrepreneurship, some people find it later in life, but for me, I knew it was going to be a part of my lifestyle from an early age. So from the age of 14, I grew up, my dad had a business since I was young. So I grew up around him building a business, and I got involved at that at 14, and I started doing his invoices for him. He would pay me. So I started to see the structure, how it worked with the business, and I was always ambitious. I always had this thing, it hasn't quite happened yet, that I would be a millionaire by 21. Still hasn't happened, but that was my envisioning from that age. Mm-hmm. And then my first business at 18, I collated some partners together, and I said to my mum, I want to start this publishing and promotions company. I was like inspired by the whole Puff Daddy era of, you know, wanting to be a manager and stuff. And she made me write a business plan. I went to pitch to her, and she did give me the money. And we started a promotions company doing events and stuff in London. Started publishing greeting cards as well, which I did get in some shops. So taught myself how to use Adobe Photoshop, etc., and created. And I've always been quite creative, so I did that for a few years. Fast forward, I went on to university and did my degree, more for other people than myself, I'd say, in marketing and communications. And then when I finished my degree, I was like, actually, I don't want to go out and get a job. I want to pursue entrepreneurship. And I did have a really good support network around me. And at 21, I opened my first business, which was a restaurant and catering company. It was a new area. I had to go and do the whole pitching to get funding, etc. But it was an amazing experience, and I ran that for 5 years. And I hadn't ever been in the whole catering industry, but I found my feet. And I think sometimes when you're young, you jump in, you're quite fearless anyway. Probably now, if I'd been experienced that, it would have been like all the fears would have come in, as it does as you start to progress in life. But I jumped in, worked it around, managed to get contracts, and it was an amazing experience, which led to lots of opportunities from there. And then things obviously evolved, starting entrepreneurship so early. After I had my first store, I did go back to corporate and was project managing for a while, but something was always pulling me back to entrepreneurship. And I think around my 30th birthday, so I'm 35 now, I was like, actually, no, I need to get back into it. And I formed a events management company with my current business partner now, which then evolved into the business growth agency it is as well. So that's a quick fast forward. So my story started quite early with entrepreneurship. And
there's about 4 different questions that I want to ask based on what you just said, and in typical Daniela fashion, I need to remember them, because I always ask 4 at once and then people forget what the first one was. So let me try to remember. The first question is, how instrumental, and I think you kind of answered it, but if you could just expand a little bit, how instrumental were your parents in kind of pushing you down this entrepreneurial route? Because for some people who have parents that are not necessarily supportive of their entrepreneurial journey, it can be a bit of a hindrance. So how important was their support to your journey and getting to where you are now?
I think it was instrumental in making me understand first that it was possible for me to go and have my own business, and also having the support, whether it be via monetary support or via emotional support, that you can do it as well. So it was a massive influence, because I've seen my now business partner, her parents come from typical African heritage, and they always wanted her to go down the education route, which she did. And when embarking on this entrepreneur journey, it wasn't seen as, you know, that is the way you should go. So I've seen it from both sides, and I was fortunate enough that I had that around me, and I was able to pursue it from an early age. So therefore, as I progressed throughout the years, I was able to dust it off my shoulders if anyone looked at me like I was crazy, which people do when you're an entrepreneur. But I started to build resilience from quite a while back now.
Mm-hmm. The second question is, there is kind of 2 different camps when it comes to higher education and being an entrepreneur. Some people say that you should go to university because it does give you a solid grounding, and other people say it's just a piece of paper, you don't need it. I went to university and I found it really useful on my entrepreneurial journey. What about you? How much lessons did you learn from pursuing a degree that are now relevant in what you're doing or have been relevant along the journey?
So it's quite funny you talk about this, because I actually think I'm on the flip side of the coin. I did go university and I studied marketing communications, which is the last part of what I do with businesses, but I don't feel it necessarily helped me. For me, it's experience. And I think as you are entrepreneur and you're building a business, nothing can beat that experience, that failing forward, that actually getting your hands dirty. And at the moment, I currently teach at a university around entrepreneurship. And I always say to them, when they come and they experience our workshops, what's kind of different for them is I like, okay, this is real life grassroots stuff that I bring into the table. So I don't think it's a necessity, but obviously there are transferable skills that you can bring in, like the organisation, like getting perhaps into a study table, like understand if you do a placement, getting that work experience if you're doing a sandwich course. So they're always transferable skills, but I don't think it's necessary.
Mm-hmm. It's really scary because I think that we might have lived parallel lives. So I started doing events at around 17, 18. I went to uni and did media and communications, not because I wanted to, but my parents thought it would be a good idea for me to get a degree. I then started an event management company and was also lecturing in entrepreneurship at university. I'm also 35. So I think we've had... It's really quite weird.
This is really eerie. Like twin. Oh my gosh, that is beyond parallel.
And now I'm a business coach and consultant. So yeah, it's quite interesting. And obviously, I didn't know you before. I've obviously seen some stuff on Instagram, but I didn't know there were so many similarities. So that's quite interesting to hear.
Amazing. This is power of online connection.
Right? Definitely. So event management, as I know, because I ran an event management company, can be really quite stressful. What were some of the biggest lessons you learned from running that business?
Oh my gosh, so events management, which is why we had to change the business model, apart from being stressful on you physically, it's stressful on you emotionally. And our business was called One Less Stress. So we was always like, we take your stress away. And events, anyone that knows it, it's amazing when you see the project come together and people enjoy and have those experiences. But it's physically draining and demanding. And when one of the biggest things that made us wake up and think, okay, we may need to change our business model was when you start sourcing in other subcontractors and then not perhaps on the same ethics and standards as you, like they turn up late or they don't, value your customer or they don't understand the brand or the image you're trying to portray. And that can be a real, a real downer on what you're trying to do. So for that was a massive thing that we learned. And that's one of the reasons why we bring connection into everything we do, because having the right people who've got the same ethics and values as you, who you can collaborate with, is so important. That's a massive lesson. And then also physically, being there, whether you've got to be there before to do the prep, during, after the evaluation, it is time consuming. And we did a variation of events from here for corporate as well as abroad as well. We've done weekenders. And it literally, having 2 kids now, I probably couldn't still be doing that business anymore. But it is great. It's a buzz, but it is exhausting.
Yeah, you reminded me of all of the stuff that I hated about events, and that's one of the reasons I kind of got out of it, although I have started to inch my way back in slowly. So with the catering business, obviously you're not running that anymore. Do you mind sharing how you came to not be running it? Was it a positive situation, or was it a lesson learned, let's move on type situation? If you don't mind sharing.
Absolutely. I'm always open and transparent about my journey. So that business, we was innovative, was first Caribbean restaurant and catering company within the borough, and that got local government contracts. But it was a very time consuming business, literally having to be there early, making sure stock was there, staff was there till late at night. And I did learn a lot. It presented me with a lot of opportunities. I got national exposure because I was so young, and it helped me get on the property ladder, but it had its pitfalls. And one of the reasons why I had to end up selling the business is fast forward onto 2008. If anyone remembers, that's when the recession came, and people priorities of eating out and getting catering, so it started to drop down the list, and we noticed a big dip when everyone was in panic mode, and restaurant, everyone literally was like, I'm going to be staying in my house. It was doom and gloom during that period. You guys remember Woolworths, everything shut up down, and I did see effects of that on the business, and that was a massive challenge, but still persevered a bit. But I also had my first daughter in 2008 as well. Had all this going on, and I was like, actually, I'm not in love with this business anymore. I think the model's too hard. I mean, it was very time consuming and physically demanding. And I wanted to be able to spend time with my daughter. I did bring people in to run the business, but sometimes when you bring the wrong people in, they don't run it again to the standard that you want. So for me, it was that point, okay, what do I do? Do I carry on doing something I'm not absolutely still in love with? I've got all these outside factors, or do I sell it, move on, regroup, and think what I want to do next? And that's what I decided to do. And part of having my daughter at that time was one of the big influencing factors. I thought, I can't have a newborn in this place, literally at 1 a.m. It's not going to work. And I can't have my eye on staff and people all the time as well.
Mm-hmm. How old was your daughter when you sold the business?
So she was just under 1. So it's literally within that year that I had, that 2008, it was a massive transition year, move stuff. So yeah, she was just under 1. So I talk to her now. Sometimes we go past the place, and I was like, well, that was a business, but she doesn't remember, obviously.
Mm-hmm. What's really funny is I also sold my business when my daughter was under 1. This gets creepier the more we keep talking.
Oh my gosh!
2008. It was in 2015, but my daughter, when I officially sold it, I think she was 4 or 5 months. So the similarities continue.
This is amazing. I'm sure we're going to get more tips. So we was meant to connect, and they say your vibe attracts your tribe. So definitely,
for sure,
yeah,
for sure. And for me, I know selling the business was hard for me because I didn't really want to, but I had pretty much all of the same issues that you had.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of kind of selling the business and then regrouping, how difficult of a journey was that for you, and what were some of the emotions that you experienced?
So obviously I was really grateful because at the time I had my first experience of a mentor, and so she had prepped me before. Mentors can sometimes foresee things and stuff. So she got me to go and do some training with groups. So at the time I trained to be an assessor, and I had some other qualifications and things in the bank, so that I could go and transition into self-employment first.
Mm-hmm.
So that I wasn't completely coming out of from self-employment going into full employment. I could be self-employed, I could choose my hours, and I sort of transitioned part-time. That was a really great thing. So I'd prepared, and I'd had other skills and assets in the bank, which I think is really important when you are in business, and that you're always upskilling anyway, because you never know what's going to happen. The emotions, obviously, is like at that point, I understand further down. Sometimes you think, okay, if things don't quite work out, or you're doing things not wholly 100%, is it the right decision? You could feel like perhaps you failed as well. But now it's not failure. You look at it in hindsight. Hindsight's an amazing thing. You can understand, actually, no, it's all part of the journey, and it all brings you to where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, for sure. And I think especially when you go into kind of the coaching, the consultancy route, having the experience of having a business and selling a business, I think can be very powerful when you're working with clients. So yeah, definitely, it's one of those, this is what was supposed to happen, and I'm where I'm supposed to be because of that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. In terms of then launching into the new business, what was the kind of first key, I suppose not necessarily success, but when did you know this is it and this is what I want to do and I think this is going to work?
So the first bit, the events management, was monetarily successful, but as you say, sometimes my heart wasn't 100% in it. But when we transitioned into business growth coaching, for me, I've always, and coming from project management field as well, and I've always loved to see things start, develop, and sometimes, if I'm privileged to be there at the end. So I think probably one of our earlier clients, seeing ideas come from conception to reality for me, and it still gives me the buzz now when I see someone come, they've got this idea and we actually put it into play and they're able to use their gifts. So I think early on, starting to see the transformations and get people saying, you're amazing, you've helped me this is like, you've changed what is from my idea, you've made it a reality, and my life is like on a different trajectory. So for me, that's one of the main things that's and it still does as well. It gives me the buzz of why I know I'm definitely doing what I'm meant to be doing as well. That's helping create transformation.
Yeah, it is definitely a powerful feeling. How did you find your first clients? And I ask this question because there's clients that I come across who are starting businesses in a variety of different fields, and then how am I supposed to get a customer? And I obviously share how I did it, but how did you do it? And especially when you started as saying I'm a business growth consultant, how did you work out who you were going to target? How did you target them? Did you have a method, or did you just kind of throw it all out there and say, let's see what sticks?
So actually, it's funny you've answered this question, because it's just reminded me I hadn't actually thought, because you get into the mode of on to next goal to next goal. So thinking back, it actually started, obviously, was an event. So our natural first progression was we started having business networking events when we was transitioning. We thought we want to help people, because people always come into us and asking us, how did you do this? How did you build this business, etc. So it was a series of business networking events, and we had some speakers and writers and authors who would be guest speakers, and it was from the audience that we got there that people started our first clients was they gravitated, there was audience members, and that was set up initially via Meetup. So that's how we started to build a network, then transitioned online and started to build an audience where we was building Facebook groups, we was doing lives, etc., and building it that way. And then we always knew about the offline element. It was important for us to build online and offline. So then starting to get the contracts and approaching people that way. By then we'd had transformation and testimonial. We were confident in what we were doing as well. So yeah, it actually started from the first series of networking events that were aimed at the business community.
Mm-hmm. It's, again, very interesting, because some people really do argue for having a plan, having a strategy, but sometimes for some people it can just be going with the flow, going with emotions, and it still works out. I'm all for plans and strategies because I'm slightly obsessed with them, but I love to hear when it didn't come from that and it still worked out. So I personally am not a huge fan of networking, but I think, and I know that having a strong network is really important when you're trying to build a business. Are you somebody that is comfortable and confident with networking, and how have you built networking into your strategy of building your business?
Yeah, so for me, being quite a social person and enjoying people, networking has been a natural part of my personality anyway. And it started that it would just happen organically. People do know me as a connector. I'm forever introducing someone to this person if they're looking for XYZ. I'll tag people if I see someone relevant. I do that all the time. And from doing that, it's then brought back people who will then refer me. But I did that, and I always do that, not expecting anything back, but just because I like people to be able to succeed. And if I have used or experienced someone they're amazing at what they do, I want them to prosper, so I will connect them with someone else. So that has helped me grow, and it's helped me to get people in my network that a few years ago I'd be like, oh my gosh, I would never be able to interact with them, or I'd never be able to interview them, etc. That's worked really well. And for me now, because I've seen the power of it, I teach it in part of the framework that I teach, and it's about developing your connections, whether it's you are developing your connections for people that are smarter than you, who are doing what you want to do, or whether it's developing your connections that you have, like I call it co-builders, people that are building businesses on the same level as you, and you can collaborate and do joint ventures as well. So really, really teach that. And I think that came, and because of the power of connection, we started to develop, myself and my business partner, a skill swap workshops, which we did for a while. We did it around London, just because I know how important it is for people to swap skills and people to connect as well. And that was a really fun element, and part of why I make sure that networking is part of what I teach people that are growing their businesses as well.
I think that's a really important point that you made around co-creation and partnering on things, because I think a lot of the time when people are trying to grow their businesses, they feel like they need to do everything on their own, and actually there is really a lot of power and strength in working together. And I always forget phrases, but it's something, if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, go as a team, or something like that. Forget the exact phrasing, but I always think that that's a really strong point, and you essentially made the same kind of point. Going back to your kind of overall journey generally, what would you say has been the hardest point on the road to get to where you are now?
For me, I would probably say it's balancing my family and my kids with the business. Often, you'll know yourself, when you're building a business, there are times that your head needs to be down, you've got to be here, you've got to be there. And you can sometimes, as a mum, you can suffer from mum guilt, and it can be there. And I think for me, that's been the hardest. Or even sometimes I'll be there now and I'll be around family, if it's my mum or my daughter or someone, and my head will be on the phone. I'm responding to messages, and I realise, and I'm like, okay, no, be present, and that continues to be something that I still struggle with, and I find that it's a challenge trying to. I don't believe you ever get the 100% balance, but trying to be present and make sure that your family is a priority, that it is alongside your business. So that's one of the massive challenges I feel.
Yeah, I think for most moms in business, that's universal, because I certainly have that same issue. And my daughter's recently started school, so I've gone from having kind of 8:30 till pretty much 6 o'clock for me to now it's 8:30 to 3:30, which really means to 3, actually 10 to 3, because I need to wind down and then get ready to leave. And that's been quite difficult for me personally. In terms of going through from having, because your older daughter, you have 2 daughters, did you say you have?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your older daughter now is, I assume, is at secondary school, and now you're having a small baby. Is it easier the second time round because you have an older child that can support?
Yeah, definitely. So my older daughter, she's going secondary school next year. We're doing the whole high school looking at the moment. And what it is definitely easier in terms that she's very helpful. She's able to support me. And also doing it the second time round, I've let go of a lot of expectations, what I feel a great mother should be. And I did have a lot with my first daughter. And now I'm just like, I roll with it. I know I do the best that I can be. I'm the best example, the best leader that I can be for my daughters. So everything else can can wind itself down, and I think that has helped a lot in terms of the expectations I expect of myself as well as being a mother.
Have you found that people around you understand your desire to want to be an entrepreneur and to be a mom? Because I've had some people, especially when I first had my daughter, that were just like, well, you've got a child now, you're on maternity leave, sit down and just focus on the baby. And I'm like, I've got things to achieve out here. Have you had any similar kind of criticisms or the underhanded comments?
Oh my gosh, yes. Even now, because sometimes I'll be doing coaching calls or something. I've got the baby on my lap, literally. So I'll have people, they'll be like, why are you still working? And I remember 2 days before I gave birth, I was on a one-to-one call with one of my clients. And I was like, I'm due to be induced on Monday. And everyone's like, why are you still working? But what my thing is that I love what I do. I'm really passionate about it. And so if it makes me happy, it means I'm going to be a happier mother. I'm going to be happier for those present in my life. So yeah, people will say, what are you doing? But I think it's up to each individual. You know how much you can take on and how much you can't. If it's too much, feel no guilt, take that time out. But if you can balance both and you're not running yourself into the ground and it's lighting you up, then I think it's only a positive thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. What has been the greatest lesson that you've learned along the way?
I think there's so many lessons, isn't there, as an entrepreneur? Probably that quote unquote failing is not it's not a bad thing, and that actually you just you're learning things, you're learning lessons that's going to prepare you for the future ahead. So I think that's been one of the best, and it's only happened more recently that I've actually understood it. You hear all these quotes and phrases, failing forward, this and that. You're like, no, but I don't want to. I want to get to the root or to the goal quicker. Forget that. But actually, you understand it is preparing you for what is to come in the future, and that's I think the biggest lesson I've learned.
Mm-hmm. Who has been the greatest influence, or I suppose even inspiration, on your business journey, and why?
So I would probably say my first mentor that I had when I was 21, that was the first time I was introduced to that concept of understanding a mentor and understanding what it meant to have someone believe in you when you didn't always believe in yourself, and that could see that bigger picture ahead of you. And although we're not in contact anymore and she'll never know this, I believe she was the greatest influence because she made me see bigger from an earlier age, and she made me prepare myself. And since then, I've always had to keep on getting mentors or coaches, and I understand how important they are.
As a coach and mentor, I cannot agree with you anymore. And I think people don't necessarily always appreciate the value of seeking that support. And it's great to hear people like yourself reiterate how important it can be because of the influence. So winding down, 3 pieces of advice you'd give to somebody who wants to start a business, a young woman who may be in work or who may have just had a child who is thinking, I want to do this. What advice would you give?
Okay, so the first, touching on what you said as well, is go and get a mentor or a coach. And you don't necessarily need to go out and pay for it if you don't have the funds, but find someone or someone that's going to tap in, that can be your accountability partner, because things get hard and sometimes we fundamentally let our dreams slip, or we let life get in the way. So having that person is really going to keep you on track and moving you towards your goals. So I think that's one of my first top tip. The second would be to understand that you are going to fail and actually reframe it and look at it as being part of your journey. You're just going to mean you're going to arrive quicker to the goal, what you're trying to achieve, or the destination. So fail forward and take the lessons and learn from them, and know that that's part of it. So don't get disheartened when things don't work out your way. And the third one would be, focus. So there was points on my journey where I wanted to do this, I wanted to property, I wanted to do this all at the same time, and it doesn't work. Your head is scattered all over the place. So you may have a million ideas. Get them, bank them, put them in an ideas bank. I do that all the time because I'm a creative person. I have ideas a mile a minute. But when you're trying to juggle like 20 things at once, you're not going to be able to give your full focus and energy. So concentrate on getting really good at one thing, then master it, then bring in what it is you want to do to expand and develop.
I love that advice. That's so important. I don't think anybody's really given that advice yet, but it's true. I'm the same. Every moment, I think I could make loads of money if I do this. Oh, I want to do that. Focus on what you're doing right now, because you can just about manage without getting 10 things out. So I love the idea bank. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
If people want to find out more about you and what you do in your business, where can they go to get that information?
So you can, I'm all over social media, so you can look for Charlotte Barratt, or type in, actually we're rebranded, so type in Grace and Charlotte, you will find us, or One Less Stress Connect, on Insta, YouTube, Facebook, you'll find us as well. And you can also email me if you want at hello@successevenforagirllikeme.com.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story and being so open and transparent. I'm sure that those watching would have taken lots of pieces of knowledge and information from you. So thank you for that. And thank you guys for listening and for watching. If you haven't already done so, as usual, please make sure you click that subscribe button so that you're the first to know when I release a new video. And make sure you like and share. And also leave a comment if there's anything that Charlotte has shared that has really resonated with you. Or if you want to get involved and be interviewed, please do drop me an email at daniela@she'sthebossinternational.com. Charlotte, thank you again, and I look forward to continuing to watch you on your journey and to interact, because we clearly have so many things in common. So thank you.
We have to stay in contact now, definitely.
Thank you, and definitely we'll be back next Sunday at 8 o'clock with another female.